Hey guys, so we've been getting a lot of comments and a lot of questions about the cantilever setup on this. Some misconceptions as well, so I thought I'd go over it in a little bit more detail, the hybrid arm assembly, cantilever assembly that we have here. So I'm going to go through some key points and what advantages it has and what disadvantages it has. And so that way we can lay it out for the people that have questions or are genuinely curious about what's going on with it. The main reason that we actually decided to do a cantilever on this truck was with the correct motion ratio where I like to put the shocks on the trailing arm. It actually puts the shocks, the coilover fully inside next to the seat in here, which means you have to push the seat super close together, and then partial of the bypass to get the leverage ratio that I want, that we like to run. Because, with a 16-18 shock, we like to get 30 inches of wheel travel. And so on the trailing arm itself, it ends up being close to like a 1:5 ratio. So what we end up having here with this piece is, so we have a 1:7:7 ratio shock to axle movement. And so we actually are getting almost 32 inches of wheel travel with two 16-inch shocks. But being on a 1:7:5 ratio to do it instead of a 1:5 ratio. So the ratio is a little bit different. And I think we're actually working the shocks just slightly harder to do the same job. But then a lot of the other trucks that we've come across or built in the past, it actually ends up being farther up on the arm. And so now the ratio of the shock actually increases, and now the shock has to work harder to do the same job. So I think we have a really good compromise between having it on a trailing arm and having it back here. They're very, very similar ratios. So that's one of the things that I wanted to go over. The other thing is, when your shock's up here, you're still taking rocks like crazy. It's not protected. If you look at all the traditional linked shocks, all this is pitted. All this bottom section of the spring is pitted. So we're actually going to have shields on this to keep the rocks, because they're going to get rear spray, which is probably more, I would agree. But we're going to have shields to make sure these things aren't getting completely destroyed by rocks and spray. A couple of the other caveats to having a system like this is, these trucks work better if you can get 60% on the rear, badass. And so we have yet to accomplish that. We've gotten 58, we got 58.6 one time. And so with this vehicle, I really think, even with the big block and being four-wheel drive, with where we placed the fuel cell, where we have all the fans, the coolers, the fire suppression system, and these shocks, which these shocks are heavy, especially the coilover with the big springs on them, the dual spares, our trunk with all of our tools and stuff in it, I really think we're going to be very close to 60% on the rear. So it's nice just to have this static weight that doesn't change behind the back axle at the back of the truck. So that's one of the caveats that, of having a system like this. The other one is just mathematically, mechanically, this system under acceleration torsionally is trying to lift the front of the truck. So you're getting the front of the truck lighter to attack bumps better. And so you don't get that with a traditional trailing arm. So is it the end all be all of off-road suspension? No, I'm not saying that, but I think it checks all the boxes of what we were trying to do with this truck by making more room on the inside, but also couple caveats, like I said, that are completely beneficial in the off-road world. So with the shields, I think we're going to be fine. There was a couple comments about bumping on the arm, on the bump stop itself. That actual link is perfectly straight. So it's essentially almost exactly the same thing as striking right on the actual axle itself. That it's not canted over, it's not misaligned in any way. When this thing bumps, it's transferring the load straight through that rod. And I think people might not realize how large those heims are. Those are 1.25 inch heims on that rod. So it's heavy duty. I'm not concerned. Just wanted to point that out. Also, some things were mentioned about weight. Well, our trailing arms, if I remember correctly, the last one that we weighed, that we designed, I think it was 52 or 54 pounds, the trailing arm naked, And so I think we're actually 46 pounds with this assembly, but I call it over the nose, like a rocker arm on an actual engine. The portion from where it pivots to where it touches the valve, that's the important part of the weight. And so we actually have we have a hybrid arm here. So we have a 70/50 lower aluminum arm, and then the shock portion is chromoly. So, plate work. And so it's actually less rotating weight than actually having the longer trailing arm. especially from where the shocks mount to the axle area, ends up being less weight. Some people have mentioned more mechanical moving parts. Yeah, because we have an extra heim in here that we would normally just have on the bottom of the link. So yes, you have an extra heim and you have this big pivot hub. It's really not an issue. Like, yeah, there's a couple more moving parts. If you ever have a problem with this thing is beef, dude. If you have a problem with this right here, you probably have other major issues, and that's the last thing that you're needing to worry about, because you're probably watered up in the desert somewhere. So this is a 2.5 inch Jmar snout, you know, all chromoly plate work, all heat treated. So I think we're good to go. And then this castle, you know, this keyed castle piece right here, I guess you could call it a drive flange, but you know, drive flanges are what goes through the axle passes through and drives the wheel on the studs. Similar scenario. So you could call it a drive flange, I guess, but it's just castled and keyed. And then this thing will be broached, you know, opened up and then broached with the splines, you know, for the sway bar to pass through. So the sway bar is also adding weight, and at the actual rear part of this truck, where, you know, a bunch of the structure of this truck comes together in that one center area, which is a really good place, you know, to have the actual sway bar, you know, resisting, you know, roll movement of the chassis itself. So I believe in the setup big time. Like, I think it's going to be really good. And another nice feature about that is we actually timed. So we built a fixture. Actually, Nick built the fixture, and so he timed these arms. So when we actually pass the sway bar through, you know, when these things are keyed, they're actually perfectly in line with each other. So if you don't do that, then you go to put one castle on and it actually moves the truck a little bit this way or this way, you know what I mean? So we actually have those splines perfectly lined up. When they broach those splines in there, the arms are timed the same side to side. So you won't have any resistance on the torsion bar one way or the other. It'll be static and neutral, you know, when this truck is perfectly level in the back. So that pretty much wraps up, you know, what I wanted to discuss on the hybrid cantilever system on the back of King George. So if you got any questions or you want to get into, you know, in more depth on it, just hit me up and let me know. I don't know everything by any means. You know, there's some guys out there definitely smarter than me. But Tony Vanello has helped me a little bit with this setup. You know, he used to build the Baldwin trucks, and you know, I've been working closely with Brett King, and so, you know, I'm pretty confident we're good. But at the same time, you know, like, if you have, you know, any questions or you have some thoughts on it, hit me up, man. I'd like to hear about it.